Hello guys, welcome back to Fall Into Tech, and this is going to be our part 3 of our hands-on AWS project series, okay? In the last part 2, we have built a virtual private cloud, which is the VPC, and also we have created public subnet, set up internet gateway, and configure route tables, and also we did set up our security groups, right? And we did add a network ACLs, and all of that is just to make sure that we have a good understanding of how traffic flows and how to make sure that our cloud is very secure and whatever we have inside in the safe spot, right? So in today's video, we are taking, next step by adding a private subnet into our architecture. So this is basically a very, very important concept where we want to make sure that our cloud environment and everything that we have inside is safe and also hidden from the internet, for whatever reason, And I will walk you through what a private subnet is and how it is different from the public subnet, because they have a little bit different from public subnet and private subnet, and also how to configure it properly within your existing VPC that you already have, okay? So this is basically a next step that what we have built. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and build everything from the ground up again, So we're going to build a VPC, build a public subnet, set up a internet gateway, and then add a route table, create the security group, add the networks, ACLs. And from there, we're going to add another layer, which is going to be our private subnet. And then now let's go ahead, jump into my diagram, and I'm going to explain everything that we doing, and is this going to help us just to have a notion of exactly what we're building and understand in architect point of view. Okay, let's go ahead, and then we're going to start with the diagram, and from there we're going to jump right into our AWS console, and then we start building this project. All right, let's get it. All right, now that we have our diagram here, let's walk through it together. So now I will use again basketball as our analogy to kind of understand exactly what we're doing here. First, imagine our AWS cloud region right here as the arena, right? So the big building is where all the game happen, and inside the arena we have built our own virtual private cloud, which is the VPC. And as you can see, the VPC is right here in blue. Okay, so that's like designing your own basketball facility inside of arena. So it's private to us, and we got to control exactly whatever is coming in, whatever is coming out. Now within that VPC, we have two codes. So one is the private subnet and the second one is the public subnet. So let's use those two private subnets and public subnet as like two basketball courts. Okay, so now the public subnet right here, let's imagine is the court where it's open to public, where the fans can come watch us play. Okay, so this one right here. And then now the private one right here is going to be just for training, where like only players and coaches have access to it. So it's not allowed to the fans they cannot get in. So no outside access, only players and then coaches, they have access to this private code right here. Okay, so now the public subnet right here that we have is connected to the internet using an internet gateway, as we have it here, and I already explained internet gateway. Think of this internet gateway as like the door of our facility where people can use to come in and out, so that gives us directly connected to the outside world. Okay, and then now the private subnet right here, people doesn't have direct connect to the internet just because we don't have another internet gateway here. Okay, so now it means like it's only for internal operations, kind of like your team members, they have access to it. And this private subnet is connected through this private network ACL and this private route table to the lock room that we're going. So this is internal. Okay, so now let's talk about the route table. So we have two route tables here. We have the private route table and then the public route table. So the public route table is like when your team open transportation schedule. It's like basically the GPS that your team is using to basically know how to get inside of this public subnet by passing by the network ACL. So that's basically the private route table. That's basically the public route table. And then now when you go to the private route table right here, it doesn't have that internet route. It doesn't have a way to get there. It only is about only internal location. So which lock room, going to the coaches' offices, and then going to the private subnet, which is we use as our private code for practice. Okay. And then now let's move to with the ACL. So as you can see here, the ACL, we have two of them. We have the private network ACL and then we have a public network ACL. So if we think of this ACL is going to be as like a security guard, stationed right outside of the basketball court right here. So we have one here, we have one here. So basically we are going to tell them okay, let the traffic come in and out as long as they follow the rule when it comes to the public one. So when the traffic come from the users, go through the internet gateway, use the route table that give them direction to where to go. They're going to use the public network ACL to be able to have access to the public subnet right here. Okay, so now the private one is right here. So the private one, think of it also again as a guard. So basically only people that have clearance that can get in and out of this part right here, which is coaches and then, you know, players and staff members. Okay, so now together the private subnet right here and the the private route table and the private ACL, so public subnet, no, let me take it back, private network ACL and private route tables, it get us basically a tight control over the internal traffic. So it's very controlled, and then, you know, we know exactly who's coming in and coming out. So this setup is critical when you are dealing with like sensitive data, back-end services like databases, or anything you don't want to expose to the internet. That's why we use it down here. It's private. So just like a pro basketball team keeps its plays, strategies, and training section and behind closed door. So we have a game coming in. We want to do everything that, you know, we don't want public to have exactly to know what we're doing. So we are going to use the private subnet, which is going to be our private code right here. Okay, so basically this is the power of designing secure and structured VPC. So we decide who plays where, this code or this code, and then we decide who watch and who is behind the scenes. So let's probably use it as like, you know, when you have important basketball coming in, you basically want to know exactly who's watching you before they go and then tell the other team what you're working on. So if you have those type of game coming in, we're going to use the private subnet, and then the private subnet use the private network to control exactly who's coming in, and we use the private route table, which is going to be just for internal use. Okay, so basically that's the diagram that we have today. And in today's project, we are going to build a private subnet, build a private network ACL, and then build a private route table. If you remember, well, we already built the public subnet, we build the public network ACL, and then we did build the public route table, and we added internet gateway, and this is the users right here. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead, jump right into our AWS console, and then we're going to start this project. All right, now that we are here in our AWS console, if you remember well, in our last project, we have built our own VPC, which is the virtual private cloud. And then also we just set up a public subnet, add internet gateway, add a route table, and set up a security group. And also we did add ACLs, okay, ACL. So now I'm going to start fresh again, because as you go and then build more like over and over these tools, you have the habit and understand exactly what's going on. So now we're gonna go ahead and then create our own VPC, and then when we're done, we go from there. But when we're done with the VPC, we go with the public subnet, and then we go with the public route table, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and then create our VPC. Now to create a VPC, you want to come here and then where it say VPC, or also you can come here and type VPC and click on VPC and just give it a time. And as we are here, now you want to go into where it say your VPC right here. You click on your VPC, and then as you can see, we have this default VPC that is already here, created by AWS. We already talked about it. If you look at on my last tutorial, you will be able to see exactly why we have it there. Okay, so now let's jump right into it, and then let's go ahead and click on create VPC. And then as you can see here, we just need only one VPC. Now we want to give it a name. Let's name it, let's see, Intotech VPC. Okay, and then now we are going to leave the IPv4 CIDR block. So on this one, I'm going to go a little bit faster because I already did a lot of explanation on the last one. Okay, so now we're going to use the IPv4 CIDR block that we have is going to be 10.0.0/16. Okay, so that's exactly what we did last time. So basically that gave us a lot of IP addresses to work with. Okay, so this VPC is for example our stadium that I explained when I went to my diagram. So this VPC, let's take it as our stadium, and inside of this VPC we will create a public subnet where it's gonna be our gym where we play the games, and then we're gonna create a private subnet where it's gonna be our private gym that we do all our practices and stuff like that. Okay, so now think of this VPC as your stadium. Okay, all right, so now that we give our IPv4 CIDR block right here, now we can leave everything as it is. And then now we can go ahead and click on create. There you go. As you can see here, we have our VPC is created. All right, now that we are done with the creating our VPC, let's go ahead and then create our subnet. So you want to come here and click subnet. You will find this default subnet. You don't have to worry about those. Now we want to go ahead and then click on create subnet. And then when you create subnet, it's going to ask you exactly what VPC you want to attach this subnet from. Okay. So basically that's what we are going to do here. So we'll need to create a public subnet that will help us connect the outside world into our VPC. And then we will create a private subnet, which is going to stay internally, which is like inside of our it's going to stay inside of our VPC, okay? But now let's go ahead and then create the public subnet first. But here, as you can see, the VPC is asking you which VPC you want to connect to your public subnet with. So now when you click here, it will show you the VPC that you created and other ones, but this is the one that is most important for us because that's what we just created. And then now I'm going to click on this one. And then as you create on that one, it will ask you to give it a name. For example, my name will be public subnet 1. Okay, I'm going to name it public subnet 1. And then now we want to choose our availability zone. Okay, so here you want to come in and then choose the first one that you find there. Okay, which is when we are in the region of Ohio. So I'm going to select Ohio. And then now here we have our IPv4 CIDR block, which is started. If you remember our VPC, that's what we had here. So now that's where our IP address will start, okay? So now we want to choose something a little bit different than our VPC. So for example, here we can choose 10.0.1 and then /24, okay? So it's going to be /24 here. So now for the CIDR block, it's going to be 24. We already choose, hold on, let me make sure that I have everything that I need here. We can definitely, let me change this one to 1 and then leave this one to 0. So it's going to be 10.0.1.0.20. I think that's what I have on my note here. 10.0.1.0. Okay, 24 CIDR. Okay, so that's what I have on my notes here. Okay. So now we already choose that one. And then now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and then click on create subnet. Okay. As you can see, our subnet is created right here. But we want to make sure that our subnet is public. So we want to go ahead and then select this subnet that we have here. Okay, after selecting this public subnet right here, we want to go here where it says action and then click on action and then go where it says edit subnet settings. And then now you want to come down and then enable auto assign IP settings, this one right here. So the reason you want to do this just because you want to make sure that inside of your public subnet, you want to have this public subnet generating IP addresses to your VPC that you have. Okay, that's the reason why we want to enable this one instead of going ahead and then assigning single IP addresses to all those, like whatever you have inside the resources that you have inside your VPC. Now if you select this one, it will give you the opportunity where all those resources will generate automatically their own IP addresses. That's why we're going to select this one. So after you select this one, you want to go ahead and then click on save. Now that we are done with creating our subnet, let's go ahead and then create our internet gateway. And you want to click on internet gateway right here and you will find one again. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and then click on create internet gateway. So here in your internet gateway, you can give it a name. You can name it as, which is internet gateway. Okay. So now with that being said, you want to go ahead and then click on internet gateway. And then now you have the internet gateway for internet gateway right. So now we want to go ahead and then attach this internet gateway to our VPC. So you want to click on here and then click on attach VPC. And then here, as you can see, you find your VPC here, fall into tech VPC. You want to click on that one and then attach internet gateway. That one is done. So basically, now that we created the internet gateway and attached it to our VPC, so that allows traffic to follow in and out from the public subnet. Okay, so that's the reason why we have the internet gateway and then we attach it to our VPC. So now we are done with that. So we didn't create any private yet. We're still creating the public one so far. So when we're done, now we're going to jump into the creating private when we're done. All right, now that we are done with that, let's go ahead and then create our route table. And the route table will basically control the traffic that flows between, this VPC. Okay, it just basically serve as a GPS where, we show exactly people how to get into our VPC. And then to create that, you want to come here when you say route table, click on route table. And then as you can see, you will see this default route table here. So we have two of them here. Okay. So when you click here, it will show you the first route table that we have that has 2 of them, which is default, and then now the second one. And if you click here and go to route, this is the another default that we have. So basically we're going to need this one right here to add a route table for our VPC. This is the default they create, but you want to select this one and then come here where it say edit route table. And then now we want to add our route table here. So we want to go ahead and then click on route table. So now to configure this new route table, you want to come here and then click on, we want to start with the 0.0.0.0/1 right here. And then now we want to look for the internet gateway, and you should be able to see your internet gateway. There you go. It's right here for internet gateway. You want to attach it to this one right here. You click on that. And then now you want to click on save changes. Now that we have our route table set it up, okay? All right, now we can go back here, click on route tables, and then now we're gonna find our route table here. We can go ahead and then rename our route table, and then for this route table we can name it as public RT for route table, okay? So we're gonna save that as ours right here. There you go. So now we have our public route table here, so we can go ahead and then move into the next step. All right, for here, one of the most important setup that you want to do also is like you want to come here when it says subnet association, because you want to make sure that this route table is associated with your VPC and also with your internet gateway, okay? So now to make that connection happen, you want to come here and then click on where it says subnet association. And then when you come to that here, now what we want to do is we want to associate our subnet with this route table right here. So you want to come here and then click where it say edit subnet association. And then when you click that, you want to go ahead and then select this one. That's what we have. As you can see, we have our public subnet right here. Now it's associated, okay? Now, when you're done, you want to go ahead and then click on Save Association. Okay, now it's done. That's the only thing that we needed to do here. All right, after making that association right here, as you can see, we have the public subnet here is associated with the route table that we built. So basically, it means like, for example, any kind of traffic that come out from the outside and they want to come into our VPC, they're going to use this route table to be able to get where they want to be. That's the reason why we made that association. It's very important to make that association, okay? Now, the next step will be to create a security group, okay? So now, and to create a security group, you want to come here where it says security and then go under and then click on security group. And as you can see, we have some default security right here, which was created by AWS just to make sure that anything that we created, you know, without having any knowledge about security group, will be able, it will be fine so far, right? So that's why they set it up here and then allow inbound traffic or outbound traffic, everything. So now we want to go ahead and then click on create security group right here. And then now you give it a name. So for example, we can name this one as like security, let's see, for security group, okay? We can name it as that. Let me just change it here. And there you go. Let's name it as for security group. And then now the description here. So the description, we can add it as security group into VPC. We can give that description. It will be fine. Okay. And when the description is given, now you want to make sure to click on where it says VPC here. Make sure it is not associated with the default one, as you can see. So it is already associated with the default one and we don't need the default. So now you want to come here and then click on for Intotech VPC that we need, okay? So now don't forget about that, okay? All right. Now that we are done that, when we are done with that, we want to go ahead and then add some rules. Here you want to come here where it say add rules and click on that. Now the first rule that we want here is going to be our hold on a second, HTTP. There you go. You click on that and as you can see, it gives you the protocol here and then the port range that we need, okay? So now that one is done so far. And as you finish with that one, now you want to come here where it says source and then click on that and then you want to click on anywhere IPv4, okay? So all this setup is already explained in the first video or maybe the second video, the part 1 or the part 2. So if you need to understand exactly why we're setting up this way, you can go back to those videos and I will put the link of this video on this description, on the description of this video, so you'll be able to go back and then understand all this setting that I'm doing here. So you want to click on where it said anywhere IPv4 and then now we got everything here done. So we want to go ahead and then click where it say create security group and then now wait, boom, our security group is good and is running perfectly, okay? So now let's move into the next step, which is going to be our network ACL. Now to create our public network ACL. We want to come here where it say network ACL, click on that, and then now as you can see, you will have the default. Don't worry about it. Now you can jump ahead and click where it say create network ACL, and then now you can give it a name. Okay, so you can name it fall into tech net ACL. Okay, we can name it, we can give it that name, and then now we can select our VPC, and then now we have our VPC right here. Okay, and then you select the VPC, and then now we're done. So just remember, the network ACL is basically like a neighborhood watch that is watching exactly who's coming in and out your VPC. Okay, so that's why we have the network ACL right here. And then now next thing you want to do, you want to go ahead and click on create network ACL, and boom, we have our network ACL is done right here. All right, as you can see here, let me move a little bit, maybe you guys can see here, we have the denied right here. So there is some stuff that is denied right here. Now we want to make sure that we have all the rules, that the inbound and then the outbound rules. Okay, so now you want to select your network ACL and then come here where it say inbound rules, and then come to edit right here. Let me move my head right here where it say edit inbound rule, and then you click on that, and then now you want to click on add new rules. Okay, so here you want to make sure that you put 100, and then here you want to allow all traffic. Okay, so now that we need to set up this setting right here, make sure that we have the inbound rules, inbound traffic coming in. All right, now that you got everything here, 100 allow all traffic, you want to go ahead and click on save, and then we did modify the inbound rules. So now let's go ahead for the outbound rules. So outbound rules, same thing, you want to come here because it is denying here right next to my shoulder, is denying, so I want to make sure to edit that. And then now you want to come here, click on where it say add new rules, and then here you do 100. Like again everything is explained on my last video. You can go ahead and check it out. So when you done type, you want to do all traffic. Here you need all traffic, and then now you want to go ahead and click on, and as you can see, it allow traffic, right? So now we want to go ahead, click on save changes, and then now we have our inbound and our outbound rules modify, and all traffic can come in and out. Okay, all right, so now that we are done with that one, it's time to create our private VPC, our private subnet. Instead of, we already created a public subnet, so now we want to create a private subnet. And then as you can see here, you want to go ahead and then click on create subnet. So when you create subnet, you want to make sure that it is right next to the, the subnet that you already created. Okay, so now this one is private. Remember, as I gave example when I was making the diagram, one of the public subnet is like the stadium where the team will play, and then the private subnet is going to be where like the team only do practices and stuff like that, get ready for games. So not everyone will have access to this private subnet. Okay, now that we did associate this new private subnet into our VPC right here, so now what we want to do is we'll give it a name here. So mine, the name will be all into tech private subnet. Let me name it private subnet. Okay, so now for that right here, instead of choosing the second one, we can just choose the first. Instead of choosing the first one, we can go ahead and then choose the second one right here. And then now we have that one done. Now here that we have our IPv4 CIDR block started here, we don't have to change it. Now we want to come here and change this one. Okay, so now this time we're going to change it to 10.0. We can choose 2.0, and then it's going to be /24 this time. Okay, we're going to change it to 24 this time. Right, now that we are done with that, we can go ahead and then click on create subnet, and boom, we already have our private subnet created. Okay, so now again, the public subnet that we have first, it was for the inside of our stadium, and then it was where the fans open for the public, everybody can come and then watch the game. Now the second one that we just created, which is the private one, is just for the team practices, and then only coaches and then the staff member, they're the one who have access to this second private subnet that we created. So it doesn't have access to the internet. Outside world cannot have access to it so far. Okay. All right, as you can see here, we have our two subnets, the fall into tech public subnet and then the fall into tech private subnet. Okay, so now we have those done. Now our next step will be to create a route table, the private route table. Okay, so now you want to come here where it say route table here, and then click on route table, and as you can see, we have only, let me uncheck here, we have the public route table right here. Let's go ahead and then create a private route table for our VPC. Okay, so now you want to go ahead and then click here where it say create route table, and then now let's name it as private T, which is going to be private route table. And here we want to make sure we choose our VPC. Okay, so we click on VPC, and then now we want to go ahead, click on create route table. There you go. So now as you can see, we have our private route table right here. Now we're not done yet here, because we already created the private route table, but we did not associate this route table into the private one, as you can see here. So the public one, when we create the public one, we did associate it with the public subnet. Okay, so now we want to come here where it says private route table, and then you click on that, and then now you come here where it says subnet association, and then you click on that, and then you want to go where it says edit, you click on edit, and then you select the private. Okay, so this is what we need, the private one. And then now you want to click on save association, and there you go. As you can see here, we have our private route table is associated with our private subnet. Okay, private subnet, there you go. Right, we have it right. So now to protect our private subnet, now we want to go ahead and create a new network ACL. Okay, so now to do that, you want to come here and then click on create, click on network ACL, and then as you can see, we already have the old one that we had here. So what we want to do, we want to just go ahead and then click on create network ACL right here. Okay, as you click here, and then now we want to come here and then give it a name. The name will be all into tech private at the ACL. Okay, then now we want to make sure to choose our VPC, which is going to be this one right here, and then after you choose the VPC, you want to go ahead and then click on create ACL. Okay, so now we have the private. So we have our public and then our private right here. All right, now that we have our private created, now let's go ahead and check the rules that we have here. So when you select on this one here and then come when you say inbound rules, as you can see here, it says all traffic is denied right here. Let me make sure that you guys can see denied right here. And then the outbound rules also is denied. So we don't have to change anything here just because that's what we need. And then if you look at the public one, if you come to inbound, we allow traffic to come in and out. The inbound traffic is allowed, and then also the outbound traffic is allowed right here. But if you select this one, which is the private one, if you go to outbound, also is denied. So basically that's what we need with our private one. So we don't have to edit this one, we can just leave it as it is for. All right, so we have created everything that we needed here. So in our public subnet, we did have a security group. For this one, we don't really need a security group just because we didn't let traffic go in and out. So that's the reason why we don't have it here. So basically that's a wrap for this project. And here is what we have done. We have built a new VPC and then created a public and private subnet and set up internet gateway for the public and built also a route table for both public and private traffic, and then created a new network ACL for our private subnet also. We did that, and then by doing this project, you have learned like how cloud network actually works, in and out, like in the real world, and understand exactly with like how segmentation work, access control, and also how to secure your design and then your environment also, and understand exactly, in terms of security also, you want to make sure that your resource is very secure. Okay, so if you haven't watched part 1 or part 2, and I will drop the link below, and then make sure to subscribe and also follow along. We are just getting started with building, this interesting project in the cloud. And also when you're done, don't forget to delete all your resources. Okay, all right, thank you for being here with me today, and then I'm gonna see you guys into the next project.